You're listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast, the official podcast of jaysjournal.com and fansided.com, where we discuss all things Toronto Blue Jays baseball. We'll talk about news, rumors, and game recaps. So whether you're a diehard fan or just getting started with the team, this is the podcast for you. Here's your host, Craig Borden, with co-hosts Jason Lyons and me, Ken Alfred. You're listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast.
Why, hello and good evening, Toronto Blue Jays fans. Welcome to another wonderful evening at Jay Bird Watching and Blue Jays Chat here. I know we might have lost today, but there's some good things to look forward to. And then, just like always, there's good mixed with the bad. So, Jason, how are we doing this evening, my friend?
Craig, it's a beautiful day here in Vancouver. I'm on day 9 in a row of coaching baseball. It's been nothing but sun and blue skies out here in the land of milk and honey in Vancouver. And so, even a Jays loss can't sort of sully my although, sort of watching today and watching what a great, effort Kikuchi puts in, and then what a brutal effort they put in at the plate. I will say Baltimore's pitching was pretty good today, but still. Anyways,
to that point, Baltimore's been a hell of a team, and they're only proving that immensely. But on the so if I had to pick a theme song for you right now, why am I leaning in the ELO "Don't Bring Me Down" ballpark? Or
the other one was the Believe It or Not, I'm Walking on Air. I was thinking about that one. What's that from? Greatest American Hero or something like that?
Yep. Or just go keep continuing the ELO point. You seen the movie Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yep.
So the second one, Baby Groot's running around to Mr. Sunshine, and that's like me. I feel like all day, every day in life, period. Shit's happening around me, and I'm just sitting here going, yeah, that's right. Dun, 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 dun. So it's all good, right? So anyways, let's talk about the game that just wrapped up not terribly long ago. Let's talk about this last game against the Baltimore Orioles, and we're just going to do a little backwards talk this week. Why not? We'll mix it up a little bit, talk about the prevalent. So you said Kikuchi, another wonderful outing. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I mean, he really, he was actually a little bit wild today. I didn't get to actually physically watch the whole game, but props to Sportsnet out here. They had it on the radio for us regular, which is weird. Just driving along out doing my work, and it was on the radio. It sounded like he didn't have a lot of control with his slider, but he was picking it up with the fastball. And that's what you have to do. If you don't have a pitch that's working, it was nice to see Jansen be smart enough to keep him away from that pitch. And when they did want to sprinkle it in, then Baltimore was biting on it and swinging. His slider was nowhere near the zone, it sounded like. But if you can throw a couple of 94s right down Main Street and then, dribble one across, it makes for a very effective pitch. I think, and we're going to get into Berrios later on. I think the two of them plus Gausman are three of the best pitchers in the majors right now. It just seems like every time they roll out, the Jays have a chance to win. And, it's unfortunate, I think, sometimes that they don't hit better and they don't do the things. But again, I think a lot of things are positive. I feel like Bo's playing well. I feel like Brandon Belt has had a really good sort of 3-week stretch or month stretch.
It's unfortunate we're missing him though right now for this series against the Orioles. But to that point, he was on a nice tear and was to that point looking like what the Blue Jays, players were calling him MVP.
Yeah, and I think that Kikuchi. I think that he just needs to stay where he is. He's not trying to overpitch. He's not trying to strike out for 15 guys in a game. It's not his game. He needs to put good pitches on, and he needs to let them hit ground balls. And we were kind of talking about this before we came on. I think at any time this year, especially when you're going against the Orioles, and you allow them 4, Kikuchi allows 2, your bullpen allows 2. You got a pretty decent chance to win that game in most cases. Just too bad that the only person that came to play today was Danny Jansen.
That would be the catch. But I want to do mention on the Kikuchi thing from watching through the highlights and whatnot. Like many people, I have a day job. I don't get to watch Blue Jays baseball all day, every day, because unfortunately, as much as I wish this is not my day job. He throws 94 pitches in 4 2/3 innings. You had mentioned he was a little wild. You could tell that from the highlights, but he found, like you said, something in the aggregate with Danny Jansen to be able to turn around, strike out 7. And for a guy that was struggling with his control, Jason, I'm very surprised the fact that he still only walked 2 guys. Usually when you have a day where you're off pitch, is something is, churning that to the point where you're not finding the plate. That's a 4-walk game in that condensed time frame there really, really quickly, especially with what we've seen with Kikuchi over the years. That's kind of the MO until this year.
And I don't think that we're talking enough about how shredding those guys have been. When they are on, they are on. And, we've seen basically a no-hitter going into 7. Gosman has had a lot of games where he's had 1-2 hits, going into the 5th, 6th inning, and he's just blistering balls by guys. He's getting pulled in the 7th after 100 and change pitches, and he's still, in the high 90s and looking like he could keep going. Side note, how good did Nate Pearson look today? Holy,
very good.
And that guy from the Orioles is just a flamethrower. Holy Bautista.
Yeah.
Crazy.
If he comes into the game, he is what BJ Ryan was for the Orioles that he wasn't for the Blue Jays. So, but outside that fact, you had mentioned Pearson coming out and throwing smoke again. Another blank inning. He's sporting a 1.96 ERA, and really, like we've talked about, looking for those opportunities where he can get some more leverage pieces. He's earned it, and to that point, that was what we saw today. They bring Garcia out just to get through an inning after, last out in the inning, comes in with Meza to finish off the inning. And then you get Pearson coming in for a clean inning. But late in the game, when the game was still on the line, that's exactly what we were wanting to see out of him. A blank 0 on that scoreboard while he's facing an A-list team, especially as far as offense is concerned. This is a lineup right now with the Baltimore Orioles that have the red-hot Gunnar Henderson. Adley Rutschman ain't too far behind him. But just think of this. 21-year-old Gunnar Henderson is the reigning player of the week in the American League. So,
they're a good baseball team. There's no splitting hairs about that. They're excellent at every position. Really strong pitching. I think they probably have matured and come to fruition a little bit sooner than everybody thought they were going to. But
except everybody on this podcast.
I think that was hope more than anything.
That was no hope to me. I saw what they did last year, and I'm like, that's not, no way in hell that's the last place team, especially when they don't have Arundo Dor playing second base anymore. It's not the substitutes anymore. These are legit guys finding it out and figuring it out at the major league level. And I don't know if you've looked into their minor league system at all. It's only going to get better for Baltimore Orioles fans. And this is the first wave that they haven't gotten.
They have the availability, which is quite unique in the majors. You don't see this too often. They actually have the availability to take assets that they have either playing right now or ones coming up behind and actually create almost a super team. Like they can start to hunt for really talented people and make it so that they're the Braves from the 90s and it's rare for teams other than the Yankees because they just spend. I guess there's a few more that do that, but you got to have some meat behind it, and they do. Yeah. I mean, they're stacked.
Yeah, but to that point, regardless, the last 2 games, the Blue Jays have held them in check. So it was very interesting to see. You had mentioned that Berrios throws 6 innings of no-hit ball yesterday.
Yeah.
That I honestly felt like I was watching something magical last night, watching him pitch.
Yeah.
And I really was shocked because even that one that Rutschman finally breaks up the no-hitter with, that wasn't a screamer by any means. Nope. So it was very interesting. And this is the fun that I've had as a Rochester, New York native, which has been the Twins organization for years until the last 2 years where they have transferred to be the Washington Nationals, which I'm going to get to selfishly enjoy for the next however long too, because they're in that same situation. I think the Orioles are currently, endorsing and doing this is the ride that is Jose Berrios. 100%. Blue Jays fans have not gotten the chance to see Jose Berrios at his A game yet. You are seeing that in spades this year. I told everybody this was coming, and everybody's looking at me like I had a certain male anatomy coming out of my head. So, anyways, but in the Jason, night and day for Blue Jays fans looking at Jose Berrios between last year this year. I don't want to jinx it by talking about it too much, but how impressive is this transformation from where you've been sitting and to a no-hitter almost last night?
It's phenomenal. And I mean, look at him last year where his confidence was shattered. I mean, he was dragging his ass off the field every single time he went out there. And even when he had a positive result or he pitched well, he would get diced. He'd have nothing behind him. He'd get no defense. And there's nothing worse than when you're on the schneid and you start to have a good game and your shortstop pooches one, or there's a ball hit somewhere that a guy could get to and, just doesn't get there. And so what I've seen from him this year is a new level of resiliency. He's got a laser focus. He's just staring a hole in the batter as he comes up. Like he's ghost face. And it's one of those things when you sort of look at the pitchers over the last even 20 years, the guys who've really dug in and been really successful, there's certainly not smiles and chuckles on the mound. And I feel like Berrios has sort of hit that interesting sort of Punisher point where he needs to sort of like it just shuts it on and shuts it off. And I've even noticed the other thing, and this may just be coverage, I don't know what it is, but I didn't notice him up talking to anybody last year. I didn't notice him sort of vivacious in the dugout or doing anything. And over the last couple games, I've certainly noticed like him and Gausman seem to have started a really good relationship with one another. I don't know if you guys got a chance, anybody who's out there or you got a chance to watch that thing on Gausman.
Had not yet.
It is excellent. I think they had it up on Jay's Journal the other day. It's one of those behind the lines, I think they're called.
Extra innings, I think.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, it is.
So,
but it's all about being a dad of a couple of little girls and just, shutting off baseball and turning on, dad. And the really interesting thing about it was listening to his wife talk about all of his career stops up to the Blue Jays because, he was a very highly touted prospect. He came into the majors with a lot of expectations
for the Baltimore Orioles.
Yes, with the Orioles, and crapped all over the field a bunch of times. And he moved up and he moved down. He was released by the Giants.
And he's actually one of the first ones to admit that.
Yeah.
He could not get over whatever that thing was because you would see him kind of like what I was saying with Berrios down in AAA, just destroys everybody.
Yeah.
Never could everybody thought that Kevin Gausman and wrote him off as what they call in baseball terminology, a quadruple A player. Not just destroys AAA, but maybe there's not enough there really to hang in the major leagues. I credit Kevin Gausman with all of the proper best words I can humanly possibly say to get from where he was to where he currently is. And I wonder, to your point here where you were just going, Jason, I have seen the relationship stuff, and this is what happens when you have the benefit of being with the team in spring training and all this stuff.
Yes.
That relationship with him and Gausman, I wonder how much has helped them both.
And Kikuchi.
Those are correct.
All three of them seem to be this weird, multicultural sort of three amigos that they're hanging out in the dugout together. I mean, Bassett is Bassett. I've read a lot about Bassett, and he's a very intellectual dude. And I think that if you don't get Chris Bassett, you're not going to get Chris Bassett. His teammates enjoy him, but he's certainly not, he's not going to crush you in the dugout and make you laugh. And he's not throwing seeds and the rest of it. He's probably doing Pythagorean's theorem in there. But, it takes all kinds, but I really like this sort of weird three buddy system these guys have. And I like to see them all talking. I think it helps that Kikuchi's English has come around. And I know that Berrios said he was going to make that a point this year. It was to be able to communicate more with his teammates in English. And he's done a couple of interviews, and I mean, kudos to him, man. Like anybody who has to learn a new language, it's hard enough, but then to have a microphone jammed in your face every couple of days and be like, hey, can you speak eloquently to a whole nation who doesn't really care that you can't speak English? So
and not to mention speaks French and so there's that too.
And I love it. I really have enjoyed watching him pitch and watching him mature. I think he's a solid human. I think he's got a really solid career. I mean, who knows? Pitchers are so, pitchers come and go. Guys come and go.
You mentioned the thing about Kikuchi.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard this or if you read this, but I've heard this from multiple players and player interviews because kind of like what we do when we have players on here. We ask them the silly questions. We don't dive into their personal lives and stuff. It's like, who's your favorite band growing up, or stupid shit like that. They always ask all the players who the funniest person in the dugout is. And I've heard Vladdy said it, Bo said it, and a few of them that Yusei Kikuchi apparently is the comedian of all comedians in the Blue Jays locker room.
So I have a very interesting story for you. So our baseball team has been blessed with we have a person who's moved into North Vancouver, and his daughter played majors with our group this year. His name is Dong Lin. He was the strength and conditioning coach for the Philadelphia Phillies for 15 years.
Nice.
So this guy is legit. Like, you're like, hey, can you ping up a picture of you? And he's like, just name the MLB, and I got it, baby. I'm like, wow, so cool. Anyways,
so when are we gonna get some guests? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's a preview. I'm hoping to get him, in a couple of weeks.
I would love to talk to him.
We're all
shenanigans.
Yeah, but he was saying to me, he was talking to the boys about nutrition and a few other things, and one of his favorite players that he ever met was Kawasaki. And there's a video, if you get a chance to go look at it. The video is just called "Monkeys Don't Crap," and he's actually trying to say cramp. And you can hear the whole team laughing behind him as he states multiple times that monkeys can't crap. And then he's talking about bananas and how many he ate because he had to come out of a game because he was cramping. And the whole team is dying. You can hear them off camera just dying. And the interviewer is keeping really straight-faced about it. And if you get a chance, Google it, watch it. It is hilarious. So good.
Hence the reason that Muranori Kawasaki was a national treasure for Blue Jays fans. So
love him.
Did I ever tell you? I think I can't remember if you were in on this or not at one time, but me and Adam Corsair, when we started this podcast, we started a little bit of a secret handshake between other Blue Jays fandom and podcast things and writers. We started goofing around with the idea, okay, pick 2 baseball relevant people. It doesn't have to be players, but it could be an announcer mixed with a player.
Yep.
It could be the front officeman, whatever. Pick 2 people related to Blue Jays baseball, folklore, history, current players, anything. And then name the podcast they do together. One of the ones that I said was not terribly long after that Monkeys Don't Cramp and stuff was Minoru Kawasaki hits a monster home run. It's like the only home run of his career at this point, I believe, or one of the very few. Wins the game for the Blue Jays. And Mark DeRosa and Minoru Kawasaki are doing the interview post-game with Shai Davidi. And he just runs over the microphone and grabs, "I'm Japanese," and then runs off the field.
So good.
The podcast was those 2 guys, DeRosa, Minoru Kawasaki, and then the name of the show was I Think I'm Turning Japanese.
Yeah, turning Japanese.
80s fun with music.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Characters are fun, and you have to have those in a lawn season. And now that I was always that guy in the locker room, shocking, I have a podcast. So it is what it is. I agree with you 100%.
It's a good thing we didn't call the podcast "Monkeys Can't Crap." Monkeys don't.
I don't think anybody be thinking we talk Toronto Blue Jays baseball about that. But by the way, there's a meme about that on there. Like if you go onto Twitter and type in Minoru Kawasaki, that's like one of the first things. He's all serious, and you see him pop up like this, and it says "Monkeys Don't Cramp."
Anyways, I mean, I think that what I'm getting at with Berrios and with the whole that group is that they seem loose, and when you play loose, the game is fun, and when the game is fun, you play better. And I mean, we're watching it right now with Vladdy. The fun has gone out of Vladdy. Vladdy is trying to murder baseballs, and it's not what he should be doing. I know he hit 2 today, and I guess 1 was the second hardest ball he's ever hit. It was 116 miles an hour or something, but it's a single right to the left fielder. He can't advance the runner because it's hit so hard right to the guy. And I know you can't do anything about that, but I mean, maybe if you take a bit off that, it's one of those ones where you pop it into the gap and Varsho rounds and gets into scoring or gets to third. And you've got nobody out and runners at first and third. But I mean, it's one of those things where Vladdy's kind of frustrating me this year. And it was interesting. I did my all-star voting I've been trying to do it as much as I can. I kind of enjoy the Major League Baseball All-Star game again. I think it's fun. And all of the All-Star events, be it hockey, be it, the Pro Bowl, whatever, I feel like the baseball one is the most most natural. It's actually a game. So to that point, I've been trying to get some of the Jays there. And anyone out there in blog, Twitter, whatever verse we're in, go and
Jays
vote.
Nation.
Yeah, Jays Nation, get out there and vote. I know Bichette I think Bichette's leading or something, the AL voting right now, or he's in second or something. So,
and to that point, he probably damn well should be.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But a guy like Whit Merrifield, who's almost hitting 400 over the last month, I mean, get him in there. It's those guys that like Kirk last year. Like, he's never, ever, ever going to forget that. Now, it does set a bit of a pedestal for him, and he's underperforming.
But to that point, you talk about a guy that's coming back.
Yeah.
Kirk is starting to look appropriate.
Him and Jano are both starting to look a lot better, and they need that. Like, they're going to need a lot out of those two for this year, especially after giving up Moreno and now knowing from seeing the guy that I can't remember the guy's name that they brought up. What was his name? Hutchison or something?
It's Tyler Heineman.
Heineman.
Yeah. And Heineman they actually just traded for because Jano got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
He was with the team last year. Actually had a little bit of a hot streak for the Blue Jays last year. And in the midst of that, like I said, he knows these pitchers already. Yeah. It was a smart decision. It really was. Now you have the depth. You can bring him in and do what you need to get done with everything at the end of the day. And I believe he still had one option. So I believe he's reporting to Buffalo today since being, reallocated to the minor leagues. But to that point, watching Kirk and Jansen be able to do what we were expecting to be doing finally going this year is what this offense could need in that bottom of the lineup. And I only point to, that kind of thing going on when you aren't getting the production from Vladdy. But Vladdy got off to a hot start. It was almost like he was inverse George Springer. Yes. George Springer got off to a crummy start, but was hitting the ball on the screws, just right at everybody.
Yeah.
Case in point of what you were talking about with Vladdy today. It's going to come if he makes hard, bad contact like he's been doing. And that confidence is going to start coming back if he does what he did today in that line out. But now you got the flip of what's going on too. Like I said, Springer's looking like Springer.
Yeah.
And that is happening perfectly.
Is Vladdy has gone away from, I think last year he had a really strong approach to the plate where he was really, really, really be selective about the pitches. I watched this thing the other day about a major league. They couldn't see who the batter was, but as a major league hitting coach talking to him about why he's swinging in the cage at bad pitches. He's purposely throwing him bad pitches. And he's like, why are you swinging at those? We're only here to drive balls, over the shortstop's head into the gap or hit home runs. I don't want you to hit little dink outs that go down towards first base and you get tagged out. He's like, that's your problem right now. You're swinging at everything.
A good hitter that he's gotten away from letting the game come to him.
Right.
And you teach youth baseball too, so you understand what I'm talking about. It's amazing how much is having a patient collective at bat will do for somebody like Vladdy that has this immense power that he does with a dish. He's got to get back to being him, and that's what we were seeing from him when he was hot to be in this season. He wasn't swinging at those bad pitches. I hate to say, but he's turning into his father. So just let it bring back down. And I hope that mantra of letting those balls come into the zone. I know they've been pitching around him and he's anxious and wants to contribute to this team. But if the game comes back to him, those balls will be strikes and they're going to have to pitch to him.
Yeah. And I mean, it's what the Jays were doing though early in the season, and this is what bolstered Witt and brought Springer back and had Kiermaier rolling. Was Bo was hitting so well that you couldn't pitch around him. Vladdy wasn't swinging at everything, so he was taking a lot of walks and getting on base.
And then the fact that you had Matt Chapman as the hottest man on the planet at that time was not hurting.
Right. And so what they need again is they need sort of two more fire plugs in the middle of that lineup that are constant. Varsho seems to be heating up a little bit right now again, which is good to see. he took there was a lot of heat in the offseason about that trade. And then I think in spring training, people were like, and then people have been like,
I'd say there's plenty of smoke to that fire, but to that point,
sure.
I'm not upset with it because I think long-term, it's going to look like a very fair trade. But right now, I can see exactly why Blue Jays fans are very upset with that fact because Loris Gurriel Jr. had an amazing last month, and Moreno is looking like he's forming and learning at the major league level.
Yeah, he's
so right now. You look at what we're dealing with, and you're like, oh wow, it'd be really nice to have a left fielder that could hit not just home runs, and that's what you were getting from Loris Gurriel Jr. Yeah. And then you look at, okay, great, we've been inconsistent at catcher this year when you thought you had two amazingly good offensive catchers. Jansen's been in and out of the lineup, and Kirk's finally getting going. So I get the point to where they're going with that trade looking bad. I'm never going to argue against the fact that maybe that wasn't the best move, but I can't say that was the worst move ever. So this isn't getting Robert Person for John Olerud.
And I feel like there's going to be some trades that are coming up here. Like I feel like we're set to see some movement over the next little bit. I mean, I really feel strongly that the Jays are going to target Liam Hendriks. I think they're really going to effort to bring him back, whether this is Liam's last year or whatever. I feel like they want his swan song to be in Toronto. I feel like he wants to be in Toronto. I mean, I know he's pitching well since he's come back.
Yes, he actually has been very impressive for somebody that literally just rang the bell to come back from a battle with leukemia. So, but, anyway,
I also feel like we may see a few like Biggio's been good, and Biggio has trade value now, and it's like you said, we have to address, and we weren't thinking this. It's at some we weren't thinking about this a while ago, but the outfielders were never our issue. We were pretty happy. I mean, I know you weren't super happy about Kiermaier, but he proved to be a very, very, very positive asset. And it's so interesting to like I've always considered myself to be a fan, and I've always considered myself to be a watcher of sports. But since we started doing this little dog and pony show, I've really, dug into actually watching and actually looking at metrics and actually doing homework, which is weird. People think we just flip this thing on and wing it, which we mostly do. But it's, I think that one of the things we're seeing right now is that some of those things are coming home to roost, and we have to. Going into July and August, they're going to have to rely on their bats a lot to get them through middle innings. They've proven that their pitching isn't strong enough at some points to get them through those things. So you got to rely on your bats. And so my hope is that it was just, it was just a little blip, and we're going to start to see them hit again because it seems when they hit in waves, they're really unstoppable. Or if they could just stop playing the American League East, that would be great as well.
There is that because the
17.
Horrid record we have against opposing teams. And to that point, I think after this game today, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're actually done with the American League East for a good extended time, except for the Red Sox that are here in the next few weeks, which are still lingering around, but we're not playing the Orioles, we're not playing the Rays or the Yankees until September.
Thank goodness.
So I hope that this team looks a lot different offensively and all-around baseball by the time we get to September, because to the point of regardless of all these things that we're mentioning on why we're scared, this is currently a full 500 and contending team. So we're above the 500 level. Is it looking great? No. But is it the sinking ship that everybody's starting to make it sound like? No, I don't think it's that. But to that point, they need to find what this team's identity is, in my opinion,
100%.
Jason. And I think that identity crisis is what's killing this team at the moment.
And I know we talked a lot at the start of the year about them pulling the home run jacket. And, I think that as silly as it sounds, like we have a stuffed taco that we call Oppo, and he, the kids love him, and when he's not there, they don't play as well, or the perception is they don't.
It's bad luck. You didn't knock on wood.
Right. So the big thing is, I mean, I don't know if they need to do something like that, like not obviously not bring back the jacket, but if they need to restart something like that, where but I think there's certain parts of the team that are really having fun right now and don't really seem to care about the wins and the losses because they know how long of a season it is. But
there's got to be that urgency, that battle cry. What do you And that is I can see they're having fun and I can tell they're all serious, but that rally point doesn't seem to be there for me right now. And that's what I wonder about, like I was a guest on the Walk-Off podcast a few weeks ago, and I had a very similar conversation around this whole thing. Is this team a speed team? Is this team a pitching team? Is it this? Is it that? And I can't really say we're doing any of those things perfectly right now.
No, chunks of them.
And usually you have, you can't say this is a Blue Jay team of yore because it's not a home run based team anymore.
Nope.
So what is it? That's my question.
I mean, I think if anything, when they really play their best, they're a hard hitting team that's tough to get out. They'll make a pitcher work. We just went over this as a little league team that, we've had some kids that have been frustrated with strikeouts. And I mean, we went through some of the matrix on some of them, and some of these kids are taking these kids to 12, 13 pitches and then still striking out. And they don't understand why that's a positive thing until you really lay it out. And that's what the Jays were doing, is they were wearing teams out. They were going old school Boston Red Sox where they just didn't swing at anything. If it wasn't in the strike zone, they weren't swinging at it. And
going full Kevin Youkilis.
Yeah, that's hard to maintain because the pitchers just keep getting better and better and better as the year goes on, and they start to realize you're not swinging, and they'll just bait the hook and pull it. But I think that the thing that we have to really look for is they really have to take advantage. Like I was just looking ahead at the schedule, and there's a few pockets there where they really have to try and take in it. And like they've got a 6-gamer against Chicago and Detroit, and then Arizona's behind that. And I mean, those are ones where you've got to put, 7 wins in there and really make sure that you're taking advantage of the teams that aren't playing as well and, smash them in the mouth, put your foot on them and hold them down and start to gain a little bit of momentum. But like you said, man, I mean, they're plus 500 right now. Like, what are we complaining about, really?
Yeah. And like I said, I can't complain that I feel like the best can still be to come for this team. Like I said, I think we've talked about it on this show a lot. What's the catalyst that takes them over the top? And I'm grasping at straws, and I don't feel like they're doing that. And I don't think they need to be, because this is one of those things that should just naturally happen. Yeah. And I wonder if it's going to be a lineup shakeup, or it's going to be that like Nate Pearson does take that like extra step or something in the bullpen, or maybe this is that Bowden Francis actually shows that he could step into this 5th spot while Manoah's getting going. It could be 1,000,001 things that finally take them to that next level. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, that tagline as the Blue Jays social media thing is starting to irk me because the next level thing, it's like, it's right there. Just, I can't get there. So it's like playing the Super Mario game, and that brick is just too far away for you to jump up and hit.
You got to get super jump. Exactly. I don't know if you're watching right now, but a good friend of mine, Dan Einhorn, watches the show quite a bit. Danny, what's up, buddy? He just sent me a text to say that the Rays are the first team to 50 points this year. So that are 50 wins. 50 wins.
Yeah.
No, can't.
You're putting your hockey hat on. I get it.
Yeah. So it's interesting when we talked about this, at the start of the season. Like I think we were all commonly thinking the Rays were going to be one of the worst of them, and they've been again just outrageously good.
Yeah, I've always said it, and this is because my friend Brendan Panikar used to host this show with us. He's tagged this line perfectly. You can't outraise the Rays. They're going to find a way to win. Yeah. Did I expect them to be this good? No. But I figured, honestly, I thought they were going to be sitting right around where we are currently and being pesky as shit, like kind of like what I feel like we are actually doing to certain teams, except for like the weird night where we get blown out by the Baltimore Orioles to a tune of 17 runs the other night. Those kind of things. But Jason, I think that I cannot say enough good things about what's going on with the Tampa Bay Rays, other than maybe they should be getting that ballpark in Vegas, but that's besides the point.
Interesting. So somebody else brought up this point. I don't mean to go to a different level. Do you know when the A's are supposed to move?
2 years.
That's what I thought too. Okay. So
they have to build the ballpark.
Well, so I was under the assumption that they were maybe going to use the Aviators ballpark in Vegas. Have you been there? It's
actually not a bad ballpark.
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
I was there when it was going kind of through the renovation when they were the 51s still, but to that point, it was for a minor league ballpark. It was honestly very reminiscent of what I get to see here in Buffalo, or out near Buffalo with the Bisons. Salem Field was meant to be a Major League Baseball stadium. So what they did was they built like stage 1, which is what the current Salem Field is. And if they got the Major League Baseball team, they were going to the rest of it on it.
Yeah.
So, but at that same time, those teams ended up being the Rockies, the Marlins, and Buffalo doesn't get a baseball team. So here we are. But minor league stadiums are built like that sometimes, and that's where the Aviators ballpark is. Yeah,
as much as the Oakland fans are now finally starting to come out and complain about the fact they're getting the team yanked, you gotta. What really blows me away is a city like Las Vegas, where they obviously the Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup the other night. 6 years to win the national or win the championship of your sport is pretty insane when you're basically the outcasts of every team in the NHL. And then you watch the game and the crowd's going nuts. And I went to a Golden Knights game this year in Vegas, and the atmosphere was electric. If they had a quarter of that, enthusiasm at any Canucks game I've ever been to that wasn't a playoff game, I think we would be much better off. Now, that being said, I think
your Canucks win everything, just saying.
They stink. But that being said, so we went to the Vancouver Canadians game on Tuesday night. What night is it today? Thursday? Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday night. And I've got to say this. For a town that's not known for really, being rah, 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 I mean, the Seas won 9-1. There's 3 home runs. They were all bombs. And there were people cheering for the entire game. Like, it was unbelievable. One of the kids on the Seas hit their first home run of their career. First home run was awesome. De Jesus, who's a player that is just a stud for the Canadians, hit 2. Yeah. One was a monster. It went over. They have this big A&W root beer cup, and it went over the A&W cup into the parking lot. Anyways.
But on that note, the Blue Jays have a hell of a minor league crop at that low end that is looking very impressive.
Yes.
So the Blue Jays, don't let them rest at this trade deadline. They have talent to trade. It's just not major league ready trades.
Right.
But a team like what you were targeting a minute ago with Liam Hendricks being a possible great addition for this ball club and a very good piece to add to this ballpark, our ball club. Imagine having him, Chad Green, Hyunjin Ryu in some fashion, all those guys along with a very emerging Nate Pearson and Jordan Romano and Swanson. That's a lights out bullpen that looks very similar to might be what's going on in Baltimore all of a sudden, Jason.
Yeah.
But to that point, I just want, while you're chit-chatting, I just want to throw this out here because this apparently is final as of today.
Well, what's that?
It's happening. So, and not to mention, that is a very cool rendering of a random ballpark in the desert. Just saying.
Yeah. And I think my point is that when the A's move there, they're going to recognize real success in a weird city. It's a city that seems to really get behind what they've got. I know somebody that was down there for the game 5, and they were like, the funny thing is you don't know without a jersey on. You don't know why people are in Vegas. And then you get, a couple blocks from the stadium and you can see all the people in their hockey, in their jerseys and they're going to the game. But there are people just drawn to the party and they're drawn down the street. And then there's an extra 4,000 people there that were never going to be down there. And it's like, it happens at Raiders games. We were down there when a Raiders game was on, and that whole strip leading over to the walkway over to the Raiders Stadium, which again is unbelievable, but it's packed with people and most of them aren't going to the game. They're sort of caught up in the fact that there's 40,000 people walking somewhere and there's cool stuff going on here and there's music and a band and, margarita stand. And so, I mean, the baseball will
got Marc-Andre Fleury, who just lives there and is like freaking the team mascot at this point now too.
Well, I mean, he's that guy, that city loves that dude. I mean, I don't know if I ever told you the story about when I was down there and I asked them, I was like, how have the Golden Knights? I just asked this woman, we were in a smash burger eating or I was ordering food and she had a Golden Knights jersey on. And I'm like, okay, it's first of all, it's not even hockey season right now. So So I'm like, explain to me why you've taken to the Golden Knights like you have. Like, I'm like, are you from Minnesota? Are you from somewhere where hockey was prevalent, New York, something? And she's like, no. When the shooting went down, the first entity that did anything about that terrible shooting at the country music concert was the Golden Knights. They did that Vegas Strong thing. Marc-Andre Fleury, Jonathan Marchessault, and Nate Smith showed up at the site. They were present. And from that point on, the entire city has taken these guys. We're talking about Marc-Andre Fleury, who is a good goalie. I mean, maybe borderline great goalie, but there are people, and she said this, there's a group of
perfect
people,
man for that team.
Right. So, and they fly from Vegas to go see him as close as he gets from Minnesota. They'll go see him in Minnesota. It's like, what? Like, this guy's become a superstar in a city of superstars, and I don't even know if he knows it. I
don't think he does either. He's like the coolest guy on the planet from everything I ever see. Coolest cucumber, man.
A really neat, aside. And I think that to be in Oakland A right now, can you imagine being in that system? And you're like, dude, we're going to Vegas. They're going to build us a $1 billion.
Except they're not party animals like Jeremy Giambi, and they'll be all set.
Well, I think that
might have fixed it.
Yeah, I think that wears thin pretty quick. Like, from the hockey players and the guys that I know in the NHL and stuff like that, the first year it was cool to go. I mean, you're like, Vegas. And then, you go to Nashville. Nashville's equally as, if not more fun than Vegas. And,
correct.
A professional athlete can get themselves in trouble in Baltimore.
There is that.
Sorry, Baltimore. Or Cleveland. Like, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. There's a lot of fun stuff to do. But I think that when you have an influx of energy, like, that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about the A's having money behind them and energy and a stadium where people will be revved up. I've been to the stadium in Oakland. It is awful. Like, and when I say awful, I mean, you go into the bathroom and you're like, I should probably wash my hands on the way in, while I'm going, and as I leave. Because I don't know what.
I think I had that same thought. I'm not going to lie. I just can't believe that ballpark, if you look up pictures of that ballpark, it used to be beautiful.
Beautiful.
But, they somehow ruined it by upgrading.
When they had the Raiders there and they were doing it as a dual stadium, and it was, it was something. And that area around in Oakland wasn't Murderville, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's terrible. You can't. We were leaving as a family. We're leaving the game. And I went to turn left out of the thing, and there's an attendant that sort of waves his hand like this, and he's like, don't go that way. And I'm like, wow, that is a really, really awful look at
I'm glad he warned you, but
me too.
shouldn't have to say that as an attendant. But anyways, regardless of that fact, I would say the one thing that the Blue Jays fans have been doing all year has been completely crazy for this team. And I think that's everything that's great in part of the scrutiny at the same time.
Yes. So crazy amounts of butts and seats. Like, they had a nooner the other day, and I think the attendance was
30,000 people there.
Like, so I get it. I get that there's a lot of excitement, and I feel like the players that the Jays have right now are causing their own, and it kind of sucks when a guy like, Yuri's gone, like some of the guys like Teoscar, like he would have really relished having this kind of spotlight. Yeah, that kind of stuff. But, I think that, like I said, they need to bring something back that sort of is team engaging, whether it's a hat or whether it's a jacket or whether it's, throwing a guy in a laundry bin and running him up and down the thing. I think they have to, because they've got fun characters, they've got good guys, and you need to let them sort of be those guys.
The battle cry, the rallying point, it is missing. And I think if they figure that out, and honestly, I wonder how much of that is going to be whatever happens at the trade deadline is that person that brings the random thing. It might not be like to that point we're seeing Whit Merrifield, what he really can do this year, right? He was critical in those couple of playoff games that we could have, won and probably should have won. But to that point, we didn't get to see. Everybody said the same thing last year. Remember the vibes of everybody last year, really? Whit Merrifield, that's the only thing you got coming here for Toronto for the trade deadline. I thought we were a better team than this. And, you look at him now, and he's easily, as far as the lineup is concerned, he's the igniter.
Craig, I'm going to tell you a secret. Whit Merrifield's my favorite player on this team, and it's not even like if Bo Bichette is then here as maybe my second favorite player. Whit Merrifield is up on the second.
His stock is rising for you.
Yeah, he's making Whit Merrifield's upstairs making grilled cheese sandwiches while we're downstairs in the basement. Like, I mean, it's the guy is, and I don't know if you've watched, again the Blue Jays things where he's golfing with Chris Bassett, and they're chasing the Gators and then just the whole thing with Bo Bichette when he puts on the jersey and he's like, oh, and he's like, you can call me Bo. And like, I mean, just that whole, I got nothing but time about that like that. Like, honestly, like a guy like Whit Merrifield, and then, and now he's hitting and he plays hard. He plays the game the right way. That's what I like about Chapman too.
It's infectious. And that kind of play should lead to good things. Yeah. And Chappie, agree. So outside of that fact, like I said, we've been talking a lot about the last 15 minutes of random things, catalyst, what takes this team eventually to the hashtag next level. And like I said, I don't think it's going to be that, but there are some things going on in the schedule, hopefully that would play into our favor. I don't know what you've looked into over the next week, but we have the Texas Rangers this weekend. They start tomorrow, 8:00 Eastern time, and a little closer to your time this time. At least they're Central Time Zone. So there you go. So I can't say that's an easy one, but I say the chinks in the armor for the Texas Rangers have shown for what happens when you throw a brick of money at old players.
Yeah.
As much as I love Jake DeGrom, that man cannot catch a break. Out for the rest of the season, has Tommy John for second time.
Brutal.
You've been seeing the ups and downs there, Nathan Eovaldi. More up than down, but I'm waiting for the like he usually does. And maybe I'm hoping that we catch that pitching staff on the right week. And that we can maybe take advantage of them.
It's interesting to think that the sort of the team that we might be looking most forward to playing is the Giants down the road a little bit. But I mean,
because the Marlins and the A's are the next teams we're going to be playing.
Well, that's
and both of them have been playing better baseball of late.
Oakland's on a 7-game heater, and Miami's in second. Texas is, like you said, it's an interesting team. Like, I mean, it's they certainly have had some high highs this year, and I'm sort of with you on the feeling that in their last 10 they're 5-5. They're kind of not dissimilar to the Jays, where they've got
eerily similar.
They've got talent. They've had pitching issues. We've lost Manoah. They just lost DeGrom. Like, I mean, there's a lot of mirror images. Sager's probably their best player. Bichette's probably our best player. Like, I mean, it's very, very similar and
mirror images of each other. It's
almost, not. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting when you think about it. And, I think that, like we said, once the Jays sort of get out of the AL East, they seem to really pound on teams. So I'll be interested to see sort of what comes of. I was just going to look. I didn't even look. They're playing the Angels tonight. But who's Texas starting? So they're starting Perez against Gausman. Oh, wow. 6-2 versus 5-3. I mean, gee. All right. 50-50 again. Jeez.
Yeah, there it is. So no, this is going to bank you up on that. The Blue Jays either have a chance to get right going against the Rangers, or this is going to be a very beat 'em up series for 4 games that we're going to be literally 50-50.
Yeah.
So I really don't want to see it that way, but like I said, I hope that they did enough good things against Baltimore outside of one game that there's some confidence there. They know what they just got through. They went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in baseball right now. And yes, you heard me say that, all you Major League Baseball analyst people that wrote the Baltimore Orioles in as a last place team to begin this season. They are a solid team, and they have to feel a little confident that they somehow managed to at least squeak one out of those 3 games, especially after opening the series, Jason, with a bludgeoning.
Well, they actually had a good chance, I feel like, to win that, win the series today.
They did, very much so.
a couple of those hits go a different direction. I mean, we're talking about a different thing. I was listening to the radio version of it, and they were talking about how Kiermaier had hit a few that got caught. And I mean, they were just seemed to be, it's hit them where they were, not where they weren't. And, you know, it's hard to say what that game's like a month from now if you know, with a little fine tuning and seeing how Baltimore plays, you know, the more you play them, the better you're going to be against them. So, I mean, I think that's one of the positives we can take going towards the, you know, sort of down the stretch is because we've had our fair share of going through the meat grinder that is the AL East. I think that we can start to look at some sunnier skies and start to really sort of sharpen our knives and go at some of these teams that even though they're doing well in whatever division they're in, just realize that division isn't as strong as the AL East.
Correct.
If the AL East isn't the best division in baseball, I challenge anybody to figure out one that's better. But
oh, come on. You're saying Milwaukee being basically in first place still is not the same thing?
I love Rowdy Tellez to death, but no, it's not good. But it's
beers, drinkers, and hell raisers, man.
I think the whole thing is that, you know, a lot of these things are going to start to play themselves out. I feel like the Jays are, like you said, they're one catalyst away from going on a month tear where they're just going roughshod on everybody. And, you know, looking at that schedule, I feel like there's some opportunity for them to, you know, if they can get some momentum against Texas, pop a couple of wins against Miami. I mean, there's no way that Oakland's going to stay as hot as they are. It's just not going to happen. You know, so maybe you take a couple from Oakland, you take a couple of San Fran, and then you're starting to get into a part of the schedule where you've got Boston for 3, so mixed bag. But then that White Sox Detroit 6
better take advantage of it.
You got to, you have to, and
then All-Star break.
Yeah, and then All-Star break. So, I mean, I think this is a real big swing part of the season. I think we're going to BP tonight, and I think the Jays could use some BP as well. You know, just hit balls into gaps, hit balls, run balls. You know, start playing Whit Merrifield baseball. Everybody should play Whit Merrifield baseball.
Well, and to that point, you know, I play the Whit Merrifield baseball. You know, put the ball in play. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I don't care. Like I said, I'm not outside of my Blue Jays fandom. Tony Gwynn is easily my favorite player of all time. And watching that man hit, if anybody even thinks about and takes a little chestnut from what he taught, putting the ball in play is better than an out. Doesn't matter. Things happen. If you don't put the ball in play, you never know what's going to happen. And that's the difference between a Joey Gallo that strikes out all the time and a Hall of Famer. So
I challenge, you know, anybody that's out there watching the show, you know, listening to the cast. Tony Gwynn is a guy, I guarantee you don't know about Tony Gwynn. I guarantee you will go in and you will start looking at Tony Gwynn facts, and there'll be 3 of them where you'll be like, no, that's not possible. No. And then you go look at it again and you're like, that and you start.
You're going to literally keep going like this, and it's going to still make no sense. And then
there's guys. I find it so funny that a guy like Tony Gwynn that is the best hitter the game's ever seen. There should be no argument about that. He is the best hitter the game has ever seen. When do they ever talk about him? Like when are you ever listening to, you know, like they're like, Aaron Judge's swing looks just like Tony Gwynn. No, never do you hear that. Yeah. You know,
the man has 7 Silver Slug Award winners. So for a guy that didn't slug, so he did a career 135 home runs. So you're not talking a guy that hits the ball out of the park, but over a 20-year career, 3,141 hits. And then here's the shock and awe number. So he plays in 2,440 games. You want to take a guess on how many actual strikeouts this man had in a 20-year career?
I feel like it's something really gross, like 110 or something like that.
It's not that gross, but we're going in the direction.
Yeah. Like it's I can't remember. There was one stat that I read that I think it was talking about his playoff games or something, and he struck out like 4 times in the playoffs. Like
that's
what?
It.
Like,
and he played in the playoffs pretty often. He didn't get to the World Series very often, but he played in the playoffs a lot. He's only struck out 434 times in 2,440 games. And then here's the crazier part. So you dive into it. The guy consistently played over 100 games pretty much 16 of those 20 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
16 of those 20 years, and there are years here he doesn't even break 20 strikeouts in a season.
It's nuts. And baseballism doesn't have a Tony Gwynn collection. Like, you can't go on to Fanatics and find the Tony Gwynn section. Like, it doesn't happen. And
he was an all-star from 1984 every year until 1999. Oh, sorry, I take that back. One exception. In 1988, he was hurt to begin the season.
There you go.
So, either way, that's, like I said, that's 16 seasons. 15 of those, he was an all-star.
I mean, you start to look like, I don't even know. I'm going to look now because I feel like I'm going to be horrified when I see that. But
closest Blue Jay equivalent, for Blue Jays fans that want to talk about pure hitting stuff, John Olerud is my Blue Jay equivalent. He didn't strike out, took walks, but this is the tip of the iceberg looking at Tony Gwynn's stats versus John Olerud. John Olerud has the one amazing year, and there was a 300 hitter the rest of his career.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's John Olerud was about the purest swinger. I mean, I got to see him live because I was there. So let's just put this in perspective. So Juan Carlos Stanton.
You don't call me Mike Stanton.
Old Juan Carlos has played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years in the majors. Looks like.
Has it only been that long?
Yeah. He has 1,716 strikeouts.
That's more than a 20-year career for Tony Gwynn. That's actually like clips into like the quadruple times or
anyways.
That's obviously the complete other end of the spectrum, Mr. Lyons, but it is what it is.
Yankee again.
The game changed. So up to that point, that's a chance that the Blue Jays have a chance they could do. And I think they're doing that with a lot of their players. I'd be curious. I don't have it right in front of me where they rank actually in that strikeouts as a team, because we're not in the Melvin Upton years of Blue Jay baseball where they were striking out every 5 years or 5 minutes. I mean, but
let's not look at the stats for what their stats are for batting with runners in scoring position, because that's horrid.
There's some fun in that data too. I was curious on that one. I don't know if you've noticed this too, but that is a true statement that they're not doing good with the runners in scoring position as a team. But they also lead Major League Baseball with opportunities for runners in scoring position.
Yeah, haven't they loaded the bases more than any team in the majors or something like that?
Correct. So that's going to change if you consistently get guys in scoring position.
Oh yeah,
for sure. They are doing that at a cliff that's better than most teams in baseball. So, to me, like I said, that's the catalyst part, and this is where I think the identity crisis that the Blue Jays are going through. Because right now, if you had to box this up into a terminology where this is for me, this is a defensive first team where you're hoping to get enough hitting right now.
Yes.
But we should be getting more hitting with this lineup.
Yeah, they've got the sticks to do it.
Correct. So, Jason, before we go too far, do you have any other things you would like to throw in here in Tony Gwynn's podcast and have some fun?
Hour. No, I mean, I wasn't here last week, and one of the things I did want to, we're gonna, I want to talk about this. So, Next Batter Up is an app that does walk-up songs, and you can do voice work, and you can get all kinds of fun stuff going on with that. And I just wanted to thank them. They've actually sort of rekindled my voice work career. I've done a few teams extra now for some places just outside of Pittsburgh, and where was the one from West Virginia or whatever that was. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun. If you guys are interested, you can reach out to me on any of my socials that you guys can probably find me on. I'm doing the work for like $2 a kid. It's a lot of fun. If you send me the songs, I can do the whole thing, and it gets to be pretty fun. I've done it for my kids for a while now, and it's a good app, and it's a lot of fun.
And now batting. That's right. And then ba-bum, like a freaking WWE entrance, right?
Yeah.
So there it is. So, Jason, it's that time of the evening time for picks to click. So you were not here last week, so we carried over your George Springer again, which funny enough won you a couple of weeks. Yep. So it's I don't know if you've looked at what George Springer's done over the last 7 days, but it's quite impressive.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I really lucked
one home run, 8 hits, batting .364 over 6 games. Quite impressive. Unfortunately, I'd say my pick of Double K, it didn't quite pan out. And Vlad for the guest spot, who's been carrying over from Mr. Heck being on the show a few weeks ago, didn't quite make it. But I'm kind of actually wondering if freaking Ken actually once again found a way to.
Who did he have?
Put his money where his mouth is. He had Mr. Nate Pearson.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And to that point, I don't know if you saw what his last 7 days looked like, but he got into 3 ball games. He picked up a win. And that's 5 innings of work, only allows 3 hits and no runs while striking out 5.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think that's got to win.
I would say normally, but I also am saying that maybe you take the win here because the fact that George Springer, that game that he had the home run, was the reason we won the damn game.
I'll take that.
So, but to that point, Kenny, that would, if for all the years that we've been doing picks to click on this show, that would have been the first reliever to ever win picks to click as long as I've been doing this. So
yeah,
I got to give Kenny the extra shout out to that, because if George Springer does not have the week that George Springer just had, he wins. and it literally took a game-winning home run to do it. So
thanks, George.
So, well, I can't say game winning, but he was the reason that it was 1-0 for the whole game. So, on that note, so to that point, reigning champion, who do you got this week? And to that point, Kenny's going to have a chance for Nate Pearson to continue his hot streak, because his pick will carry over from last week.
That's true.
Along with Vlad in the guest spot.
I feel like I'm going to go off the. I haven't taken a pitcher yet this year, and so
you have not.
I don't want to again. I don't believe in jinxes or hexes or any of that other crap. So I am going to take Kevin Gausman.
There you go. Starting the series off with Kevin Gausman. So I'd say that's a pretty good chance, because you're actually the catch on that. What I found over the years of doing this, that the pitchers that end up having 2 starts, if they do 2 mediocre starts or 1 mediocre and 1 excellent, usually outweigh a lot of hitting.
Yeah.
So, but you have to find that guy that's pitching. So go Kenny, go Cos. So anyways, now I got to pick, and I'm trying to think of who I haven't picked here in a while. And I'm really kind of desperate for a win. So I'm going to ride the guy that has the best batting average over the last 6 days. And that is your new favorite Blue Jay, Whit Merrifield. So I can't believe I haven't picked him yet this year. So it's going to finally get somebody new on my board.
There you go.
So anyways, anything else you would like to discuss?
Nothing, buddy.
Good. Great, grand, wonderful. No yelling on the bus. So, all right, Blue Jays fans, thank you very much. Thank you for chit-chatting with us. And we saw the comments this evening. Thank you to Shane Blyer Hikes for, chiming in that Vladdy needs to hurry up and get hitting and all that kind of good stuff that we saw on the message boards this evening. Make sure you join us each week on our new time, everybody. So I'm sorry to say that we are moving to Monday nights, because my cohorts here, and Ken Alfred and Jason Lyons, apparently have lives and get to
too damn busy,
fun things outside of Blue Jays podcasting. So we are moving to Monday evenings, 7:00 Eastern time. So we will be with you to kick off series this now, instead of going like we've been doing, where we're kind of just catching the tail end and on a getaway day usually. So to that point, Blue Jays.
The other thing, Greg, is if we need to throw a few extras in, if we hear from the masses that or if there's a big game or something weird, I feel like we'll have a little bit of flexibility. You and I might just pop on for a little IG live or something like that. That's what the kids are digging on right now.
I want to get back to doing that again. We haven't had that fun with being able to do that with the Twitter Spaces stuff or any of that kind of stuff of late. So we'll get that moving back up, especially 100%. Now with our fun, wonderful tools here. I can actually put the thing on this and stream it other places. So it's one wonderful things with technology. Yay, I'm a nerd. I get it. So anyway, Blue Jays fans, make sure you tune in Monday at 7:00 Eastern right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, anywhere else that you could possibly find us. And we'll be here for you live to chit chat with you, Toronto Blue Jays baseball. If you miss us live, make sure you listen to wherever you can get your podcast pleasures for. Hit those subscribe buttons on YouTube and anywhere else you might find us. And we are happy to be here and talking Blue Jays baseball with you at the Barroom Chat. That is the Jay Bird Watching podcast, part of jaysjournal.com and Fansided. And I think it's that time of the evening. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Let's go Blue Jays. This is taking forever. Why is that was taking forever?
Thank you for listening to the Jay Bird Watching podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch at BirdwatchingGC and our YouTube channel. If you want to support the show and get extra content, please consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/birdwatchinggc. Go Jays, go.